a Look, the podcast bringing back the personal pop culture recommendation with Rin and Roger.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Give It a Look podcast. My name is Roger. I'm here with my co-host Rin. Hey, Rin, it's about the time of year where people start talking about their Spotify Wrapped playlists. Were there any surprises in your Spotify Wrapped playlist for 2021?
Yeah, I think because we had been, we'd done Music Month and things like that, I did have some artists that were a bit more surprising, like Miley Cyrus, for example. I listened to her when we, actively listened to her when we were doing the, Music Month. But other than that, I don't actively listen to her, but I think she's also on my work playlist. So that's probably why she's one of the top artists, I think, because it just kind of repeats, at work. My top song was Hold On, We're Going Home by Drake, which definitely surprised me because, again, that's not one of my active listening songs. I think, again, it was one of those songs that's just on the work playlist. My favourite one was probably You Make My Dreams Come True by Hall & Oates.
Yeah.
What's yours?
Well, there was a point in the year where I was listening to a lot of like relaxation music and sound frequencies and stuff like that. And so in my top 100 tracks, interspersed with your alt rock and your art pop are kind of these long stretches of just like just weird like audio waves and alpha waves and stuff like that.
What was your top genre? Because mine was dance pop and I was like, oh, that doesn't sound like me, but maybe it is. I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out.
My top one was indie, which is a pretty like broad category, I'd say. And my top song was a real gem that I came across through the algorithm this year called The Way You Feel by Hotel Apache. Yeah, that's a really neat one if people want to check that out.
Who were your top 5 artists?
I had Lights in there. I had Anne Boleyn in there. A few others that I've forgotten.
It's funny, I had some friends tell me that when they saw mine and that my number 1 was Elton John, they were guessing before the before the list came out, and they're like, we reckon Corinne's number 1 will be Elton John. And then look, they were right.
So good. I think Churches, the Scottish electronica trio, were also in there as well. Yeah, new album and all this year. Cool thing about Spotify Wrapped is that it also lists podcasts now. And if you're making a podcast, you get your own Spotify Wrap where you get to find out, how many people have listened, how much. And we've had people reach out to us saying that we here at Give It a Look podcast were appearing on their Spotify Wrapped. How cool.
That's very cool. I know. I had a few people message me as well, and I was super stoked. I was like, oh, woohoo, we made it onto like a list.
There was a little bit of chart news. Apparently we charted number 15 in the leisure category in Australia, briefly. I don't know when that happened. But
for 7 days, I think it was something like that. I know, very cool though. I didn't know that. I was like, oh, that's news.
Next thing you know, we're going to have like a gold-pressed record of a podcast on our wall or something. I don't think we're back in the charts just yet, but we're coming for you. And that's why we need your help at home. Maybe while you're having some downtime this summer or this Christmas break, you can have a little listening party with some friends or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Why not? Pop it on around the pool or something, as my mum would say.
We are entering the second week of Doco-cember, which means we've given each other a documentary that the other person has never seen. We're going to hear what they thought about it. So what have you got for me this week, Rin?
Yeah, so the doco I gave to you this week was Molly, The Real Thing. So basically it's based on, the startings of Molly Meldrum and how he became Molly Meldrum. Born Ian Meldrum, started life in Orbost, regional Victoria, and made his way to, around, the Elwood kind of area of Melbourne, and kind of started to make a name for himself, being very, involved in pop music and rock and all these kind of different genres, mixing with all these different up-and-coming artists as well. Yeah, it's just really interesting seeing how his life came to be what it is. And I kind of think of Molly as the original influencer. He kind of started pre-Instagram. He'd have Countdown Countdown was, a very successful, music show that had Australian artists and overseas artists come on the show and they'd perform the songs. And that's how, a lot of people would learn new music, especially, the Australian music scene and overseas as well. So, we have to kind of thank Molly for that as well, for growing the music scene here anyway. So, and he would just be like, do yourself a favor and go out and get this record, etc., etc. And, throughout this doco, we see people he's worked with as well and who he's produced for, worked for, who's he's interviewed, things like that. So you see Michael Gudinski, the Minogue sisters he's had a lot to do with as well, Johnny Young, Jimmy Barnes, all that kind of thing. So you see a lot of, there's video, pictures as well, and just the interviews. And it's really interesting and everyone has a good story and no one can say a bad thing about Molly as well. Because he is an Australian treasure, I believe. But yes, what did you think, Roger? Tell me.
Yeah, this one was good. Definitely a different feel to, for example, last week's documentary. This one feels less like a kind of walking pace told story and more like a fast, snappy clip show similar to like a 20-to-1 format, people who might imagine that show. It really looks to kind of cram in a very large number of talking heads. There's dozens of very, very short audio clips rather than longer form interviews. Ian Meldrum himself was not involved in the making of the film at all. So it's all told from other people's perspective, which took me a while to get used to. I think I was, at first I was kind of craving something a bit more in depth, but this film was kind of put together a few years ago in the wake of a rather serious ladder accident that Molly was involved in. And it just really reads like a love letter.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. It's like it's a tribute to Molly and, he would be someone who's quite humble. That's the impression I get of him. And he's not going to sit there and be like, yes, I did this and I'm great and etc., etc. So I think it was really nice that, all these people as a collective, came together to talk about him and they speak very highly of him as well. Molly's happy to see anyone in the Australian music industry do well.
I felt a bit ignorant because I knew a lot about the music journalism side, if you like, of Molly. I didn't know that he was actually directly involved as a producer on several really big hits in Australia.
Like the song The Real Thing, sung by Russell Morris. He decided that it was going to sound the way that it did, like that eerie, spacey, psychedelic sound as well.
Big Beatles influence, you can definitely hear that.
He was the one that decided that because originally it was kind of going to be more rocky and everyone, he was like, no, this is going to work, because it was like a 6 or 7 minute song and at the time people were like, no, that's too long.
Would you have thought it was too long back in the day, Rin? I know you don't like long songs.
Yes, that's right. Yes, you know me. I mean, even now, that would be a long song. But radio stations wouldn't play songs that long. That's the thing as well. And it was one of the biggest hits. Everyone's praised him as being probably one of the best producers around.
As well as that, it kind of shows a few of the pre-Countdown projects that he was involved in on community television, Commotion into Uptight and then into Countdown, which we weren't alive for, but I'm sure for the generation before us was just such a formative platform. It was the way that bands made it big, the way that Pseudo Echo got big.
Oh, lots of bands, Skyhooks and you've got like the Skyhooks Sherbet debate. Who were you? Were you the Hooks or were you Sherbet? There was always that as well. It's a lot of artists that I like to listen to, like even now as well. Molly helped put that out there.
It's severely lacking in the music landscape nowadays. Things have become so fragmented where, you've got very well-established kind of global names and groups and then the really, really indie scene, if you like.
I really miss shows like that. Remember Video Hits and things like that as well? Like, that's how I kind of discovered new music. More recently, there was a show called The Loop on Channel 11 and it used to be on Saturday mornings and I actually really liked watching that. Recently that disappeared as well. It'd be nice if I think they kind of came back. Whenever I watch shows like Graham Norton, that's how I discover a new artist because I'm like, oh, I like that, and I see it because I'm a TV person.
For those who don't know, like, our government struggles enough to support the arts, in general as it is. Different things are given a lot more attention and a lot more resourcing.
They go with what's safe and what they know will chart.
But yeah, it would be good to see something like this pop up again, just to give opportunity for new up-and-coming artists. Like I said, it's become very fragmented.
If you get a chance as well, you should watch the miniseries called Molly as well with Samuel Johnson. It's very good.
So this is the dramatization of his life story.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. In terms of the doco itself, yeah, like I said, it's quite fast. Sometimes it can feel a bit rushed and scattershot. The quality of the filming of some of these kind of celebrity heads that they have on does differ. You've got some that, obviously sitting down for an interview, and then you've got Hugh Jackman, who just seems...
Looks like it's on a phone or something.
Well, he seems to be on break at a film, and he's just kind of up against a brick wall, saying perfectly kind things that contribute well. But yeah, there's a bit of a jump in quality between some of the filming here. But really, it is, like we've said, it's a love letter to a larrikin, to an eccentric, to someone with just an incredible driving passion for music. It's celebratory of Molly's sexuality as well. He was one of Australia's first openly gay men in media, and this is during the 70s, and just did life and continues to do life his way. It does end on a rather nice note of all the talking heads wearing his iconic hat and kind of doing his catchphrases. And then you get a nice look at Lindsay Fox's ass to finish things.
Yes. I was going to ask you about that.
We've been waiting so long.
I know, it's what the people wanted, obviously.
You've probably seen the backside of his trucks enough. Time to see the backside of his truck.
Oh, funny. I think overall it's just really a nice positive documentary about someone who's made such an impact in the music industry in Australia. And it's just really nice to see him be commemorated in that way, What is your verdict, Roger?
Yeah, I'm going to say give it a look. Different feel to it, more breezy, not something that you have to concentrate on like the whole way through. Like I said, just reads like a love letter, like a really extended 50th birthday party video that someone's put together.
Yeah, a little bit, isn't it?
It's well soundtracked. You get some really big names in Australian music putting in their 2 cents. And I learned something, I learned a bit more about his experience in producing. So yes, please give it a look. And if you'd like to give it a look, Molly, The Real Thing is currently streaming on Stan in Australia. Okay, moving on to my recommendation to you. I have given you the New Zealand documentary Tickled. So Tickled was co-directed by New Zealand journalist David Farrier, who looks a lot like Louis Theroux.
He does.
So for those who are interested in the work of Louis Theroux, you're in for a bit of a treat here. This whole thing started when David came across a rather strange video that had gone viral over the internet of competitive endurance tickling. It was a video of several young men in sports gear, sponsored sports gear, and they were basically tying each other up on mats and tickling them in various parts of their body and seeing how long they could go through with it. And people were saying, what is this? And they were kind of looking into the talent agency that was behind these tickling videos. And David decided to reach out to the media company's Facebook page because he seems to have been a student of the weird and wonderful and wanted to find out some more. And the reaction that he got from this media company was these really overblown and very homophobic aggressive emails. And it made me wonder if maybe these emails were a little bit more measured and they didn't protest too much. It makes me wonder if there even would have been a film here because it made David even more hungry.
It's like they poked the bear.
Indeed. It made David even more hungry to find out what the real story was here. He announces that he's going to start making this documentary about investigating this video. Before you know it, he's now facing legal action from the US. The media company has sent out 3 different representatives. And again, they've been quite abrupt saying, you need to stop looking further into this. We're really sorry for the emails. We don't know who sent them, but the people you're dealing with have a lot of money. And David and his co-director are thinking, this is just a silly tickling video, right? And all this over some tickling.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. They end up traveling to the US after doing some more investigation into the company that owns the domains behind these videos. And they end up finding a few young men who are willing to give interviews, who are in the videos, and who say that they were exploited in different ways, as in they discovered the videos were out there, they asked for them to be removed. Again, rather than remove them quietly, the media company decided to plaster them everywhere else. And in some cases, it's ruined the sporting careers of some of these young men. So this film, it is in a way about fetish and about kink, but it's not necessarily looking to kink shame anyone. What it is trying to uncover is exploitation. You know, something happened where these young men were offered money, and they often lived in poor areas of the US, and they probably didn't know exactly what they were getting into. And, you know, they're involved in these reasonably kind of innocent tickling videos, but the fact is they were published and sent far wider than they would have expected. What are your opening thoughts on this film?
The longer I watched this movie, the more crazy it kind of got. The opening is kind of like you go, oh yeah, they just happened to stumble upon this tickling video, and you go, oh yeah, whatever. And as I guess any journalist would do, they just kind of go, oh hey, like, do you want to talk about it some more? And they just get slammed with these very aggressive and nasty emails being like, we don't want to associate with a homosexual journalist. You know, I'm like, what the heck? Okay. Like you were saying, like they get smacked with all these, you know, lawsuits, you know, and then they kind of go, oh, well, we're going to go further. And then they go to America to go, and then they, you know, kind of start tracking down these like tickle sessions, and, you know, they get told to leave and it's a legal matter and all this stuff because you're being sued. And I'm like, oh my God, all this guy wanted to know was about what's this tickling video that came up. And, you know, it's so much more in depth than you would think. It's actually crazy. But he gets in contact with another gentleman in Florida who he's quite open about it. And he's like, yeah, I'm into this. This is my jam, you know, kind of thing. And he's quite, you know, open and discusses it. And, you know, I think that's more what David was kind of looking for, was like, oh, okay, yep, cool, no worries. Like, that's your thing. That's all good. But then he finds out later, like, this Jane O'Brien Media company, like, Jane's not even a real person, as we discover, you know. And it's very interesting to see actually who is behind Jane O'Brien Media / also Terry DeSisto as well. That's another alias.
Yeah. It's a deep rabbit hole. It's a deep and ticklish rabbit hole. They do interview what you might call like a legitimate tickle video filmmaker. They also, you know, make contact with the man who was in charge of casting some of these tickle videos as well, and how he eventually got chewed up and spat out by Jane O'Brien Media as well. So there's a really strange dynamic of someone or a group of someones who, you know, have a real fixation on something and a real drive to create something for whatever ends. And they're willing to use people and to shame and embarrass people and tell outright lies and, you know, use incredible amounts of money to get what they want. So in a way, that first US party that went out to New Zealand to talk to David were kind of right. He was really playing with fire, and there's parts where their producers weren't sure whether they'd be able to finish this film.
None of these lawyers had met their client. Like, they didn't know who their client was either. Because they were, you know, they were asking, oh, do you know have you met this person? And they're just like, no, we haven't. And they're like, don't you think that's weird? And they're like, no, I don't think that's weird. But anyway, there was one, you know, young man who, you know, reported it to YouTube saying, I didn't give consent for me to be on here, kind of thing. And they removed it. And then Jane O'Brien Media kind of went, okay, well, we're just going to splash it on everything. And then ruined essentially this young man's career, because they were like, you're a good player, but it's too much bad press for us. That's what the teams would say. You know, that would have been gut-wrenching, because you work hard for that stuff too.
Yeah, and there is, you know, there is a sense of injustice in some of the things that come around, not just the exploitation, but the fact that there was a lot of money behind this and a lot of legal power as well, and a lot of family connections that, you know, were able to avoid consequences for some of the actions taken here.
You know, when they're calling people to try and get to this particular person as well, everyone they kind of get in contact with is just like, you're better off without them. Like, don't even try. Like, they're terrible, and et cetera, et cetera. Like, it just kind of goes to show, like, what a bad person that individual was. was.
There would have been so many more people who weren't willing to talk than who were. Do you know what I mean?
I watched The Tickle King, which you had sent to me.
What's The Tickle King, Rin?
It's like the sequel. So it goes for about, 25 minutes or something like that, or half an hour. It's basically them at the festivals, showing the video, the Tickled documentary, and the people they're discussing actually show up at these festivals and, kind of confront them, and because they're doing Q&As, so it's quite interesting and confrontational as well. So, you kind of sit there like, oh, the story continues.
It does. Yeah.
And you don't think about this. Like, it's just tickling. You wouldn't think this, right?
It's just a weird viral video, but no, there's so much more to it. I didn't know about the Tickle King until I rewatched Tickled. And so it's a really nice postscript available to watch for free on YouTube. And interestingly enough, one of the interviewees in the main film Tickled basically recants his testimony in the Tickle King. Now, mind you, you're reading his body language and you can tell that he's not comfortable. You can tell that he's being asked leading questions anyway. I'm not in law
he's
at all.
kind of like coerced
I can still tell that there's
side.
something else going on here. So, yeah, really amazing. But what's your verdict? Give it a look or give it a miss?
Yeah, I'm going to say give it a look, actually. It's a bit wild. Like, it's a bit like Tiger King. Like, the longer you watch it, the more, like, crazy it gets, and you're like, you can't look away. You must watch.
It's engrossing. Truth is stranger than fiction, hey? Well, Tickled is currently streaming for free on ABC iView in Australia, which doesn't even require a paid subscription, so that's cool. And The Tickle King, the short postscript to the film's release, can be viewed on YouTube for free. Moving on, we hope you are all having a great summer of cinema. We would just a reminder that we are running our first ever summer of cinema this summer. We want to get you back into your local cinema, and we want you to send us your reviews on socials. Let us know what's worth seeing and what's worth missing. Tell us, give it a look or give it a miss. Dune has been out for a while. Encanto is out. You've got Dear Evan Hansen. You've got The French Dispatch. There's something there for everyone. So please jump onto socials and let us know what you think. Where can people reach out to us on socials, Rin?
Yeah, so our handle on Instagram and Twitter is @GiveItALookPod. And if you guys want to email us, it's giveitalook1@outlook.com.
Wonderful. Well, Doco-cember is a wrap for now, because next week we are putting up the tree, we are lighting the lights, we are opening the advent calendars. We have our 2021 Christmas wrap-up, and we've recommended a Christmas film to each other. What have you got for me, Rin?
Yes, so I have the 2020 Christmas kind of rom-com, I'm going to say, Holiday, starring Emma Roberts and Luke Bracey.
There we go. And I have given you our first foreign film, actually. This is a Finnish horror comedy, Rare Exports, A Christmas Tale, which might make you rethink whether Santa is actually a nice guy or not.
I also love to read, so subtitles, excellent.
Yes, there we go.
It's all right. I do subtitles anyway. I'm like deaf, so...
So next week will be our final episode for 2021. We'll be talking a little bit about what 2022 will look like for Give It a Look podcast, so make sure you tune in. Rin, anything to sign off with until then?
I'd be happy if anyone would send us their Christmas tree pictures or something. That would be nice. Tell us, what your favourite Christmas film is. Is it It's a Wonderful Life or The Grinch or something?
Or is it Kiss Kiss Bang Bang? Because that's still my favourite.
No, it's not. It's not that.
I used
Die
it up
Hard.
too early, damn it. We'll see you next time on Give It a Look. Tickle, wickle, wickle.
Okay, bye.